Hello, it's Friday, November 11th, and you're watching The Big Story with me, Chao Suen. Subscribe to the Straits Times channel to stay up to date with our live news updates. Now, in some surprising news, Chinese health authorities have just eased some of the country's heavy COVID-19 curbs, a significant calibration of the COVID-zero policy that has isolated the world's second-largest economy and raised public ire. The easing of measures include shortening of quarantine times for close contacts of cases and inbound travellers by 2 days. Under the new rules, quarantine will be cut to 5 days at a centralised location, plus 3 days at home. The country will also eliminate the controversial system, which imposes a penalty on airlines for bringing in infected passengers. Additionally, only one pre-departure PCR test will be required for travellers attempting to enter China, down from 2. China correspondent Elizabeth Law joins us from Beijing. Thanks for joining us, Liz. So this has taken many by surprise. Tell us more about what was in today's announcement and what it all means.
So, I mean, earlier you actually read out the highlights of it, but there are more specifics in today's announcement, which also include the fact that they are going to create bubbles now for what they call special people involved in high-level businesses or sports teams who are here for competition or training sessions. They have put in place a rule that says that people cannot be double quarantined, because what has happened quite frequently in the past year or so is that people who are flying into, say, Beijing, have to fly in through a third city. They do their quarantine at the first place they enter the country, and then when they arrive in Beijing, they get quarantined again. So what today's announcement has said that will not be allowed. They have also sent out another warning to local authorities that they should not be arbitrarily shutting schools, shutting off public transportation, or even shutting off factories. So quite a lot of details, essentially trying to ease people's lives, to try and make lives easier so that, there isn't that sort of uncertainty that we all live under.
So it definitely sounds like there is quite a number of changes. Can you give us a sense of how people are reacting to this, given that China's COVID-19 cases are at a 6-month high?
Well, in the past few hours since this announcement has gone out, people are definitely very excited about it. It seemed at some point, especially towards the end of last week and earlier this week, that people had reached a breaking point. We saw a lot of horrifying stories that were coming out of lockdown. People denied medical care, a lady who had fallen to her death, the body not being collected, her daughter, having to scream and cry for help for hours before anyone actually responded. So, all these things were really pushing people towards a boiling point, and it felt as though at some point something very bad was going to happen. But with this announcement today, it seems now that people are getting a little bit more excited. I saw numbers from C-Trip who said that in the hour since this statement was put out, flights entering China have doubled on their platform. So ticket sales for flights entering China have doubled. So I suppose good things are happening and people are reacting positively to this.
So with all this excitement, do you think this signifies that China is backing down from its COVID-19 policy? And what does this easing of restrictions mean for the Chinese economy, which has been isolated for nearly 3 years?
Well, I think there are many parts to that question. Firstly, whether China is backing down, the answer is definitely no. In fact, even in today's statement, at the very top of it, they said that the fact that we are refining measures does not mean that we are backing down, does not mean that we're easing up on our zero COVID policy, and it certainly does not mean that we're going to tamping, which is this somewhat derogatory term I personally feel to signify coexisting with the virus. But at the same time, for the economy, I mean, the fact that, they are not going to have the flight suspension mechanism anymore, the fact that they are trying to allow more business people into the country, I think these are all fairly good signs and do bode well for the economy. But again, it is still early days. Whether or not the visa situation is going to change, whether or not they are going to resume flight levels to what it was pre-COVID, I think we need to see whether or not CAAC, the Chinese Aviation Authority, actually responds appropriately. So still early days, but I think there are hopeful signs.
Certainly sounds hopeful. This has been China correspondent Elizabeth Law. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Southeast Asian leaders are gathering in the Cambodian capital Phnom Penh for a series of summits dominated by the crisis in Myanmar. ASEAN has repeated its commitment to the so-called 5-point peace consensus, but some members such as Singapore have been pushing for a stronger stance. Cambodian Prime Minister and ASEAN host Hun Sen addressed the opening ceremony with a call for vigilance and wisdom during times of economic and geopolitical turmoil. Myanmar's junta chief has been blocked from attending ASEAN's meetings since last year, and the country is instead represented by a symbolic empty chair. Now, speaking of the summit membership, a new member to join ASEAN, Timor-Leste will be admitted in principle as the 11th member state. Asia's youngest nation will be granted observer status at ASEAN meetings, including at summit plenaries. The grouping will formalize an objective criteria-based roadmap for Timor-Leste's full membership in ASEAN. Now, in other news, getting reinfected with COVID-19 is riskier than the first infection. This, according to a new study where the risk of death, hospitalization and serious health issues from COVID-19 jumps significantly with reinfection, regardless of vaccination status. The findings were drawn from U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs data collected over 2 years. And big tech continues southward, with yet another major social media company feeling the pinch. Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, on Thursday raised the possibility of the social media platform going bankrupt, adding that the company did not have the necessary cash to survive. This follows departures of senior executives who were viewed as future leaders. The billionaire told Twitter employees on a call that he could not rule out bankruptcy 2 weeks after buying it for US $44 billion or 61 billion Sing dollars, a deal that credit experts say has left Twitter's finances in a precarious position. Now, those are our top stories for today. Visit straitstimes.com for more news and our YouTube channel for more videos. Subscribe by hitting the red button below. I'm Chao Suen, and I'll see you next week on The Big Story.